There's one organ in your body that works constantly, 24/7, your entire life, and you probably don't think about it once a day until it starts failing. And when it does so quietly, painlessly, without dramatic signals. For months, sometimes years, it sends subtle signals that are easy to ignore or attribute to fatigue, age, or stress. Swollen ankles at night, chronic fatigue that doesn't go away after sleep, brain fog you don't know what to do about, frequent nighttime urinations, and then one day a blood test, a high creatinine level, and the doctor saying, "We need to monitor your kidneys." And then, in that moment, a question arises that should have been asked much sooner. What could I have done differently? Today, I want to talk to you about your kidneys. I know this isn't the kind of topic you expected to see on a heart surgeon's channel, but I'll explain in a moment why the kidneys and the heart are so deeply connected that one organ can't be healthy without the other, and why, as a heart surgeon with 46 years of experience, I can't talk about cardiovascular health without also talking about the kidneys. But first, I want to tell you about something I've been observing in nature for thousands of years, in kitchens, in culinary traditions, in plants that have been used for generations as natural health support. And what is science now beginning to confirm with impressive precision? There are several common kitchen spices whose effects on the kidneys and vascular system are documented in clinical studies, and which you can incorporate into your diet without a prescription, at no cost, and without any life-changing consequences. But before we get to that, there's one thing without which no spice, no medicine, and no dietary change will work as it should, and I'll tell you about it at the end. Stay with me until the end of this conversation, because this one thing may be more important than anything else you'll hear today. In 46 years of working at the operating table, I've seen almost everything that can happen to the human body. Clears throat. I've operated on hearts, repaired arteries, implanted valves, but there's one pattern I've seen many times and which to this day evokes a certain sadness in me. A pattern in which someone comes to me with advanced cardiovascular disease and their medical records show deteriorating kidney function for years. No one paid enough attention to this. It was treated as a separate problem for a separate specialist, a separate priority. Meanwhile, the heart and kidneys are one system, one integrated, interdependent system. And when one begins to fail, the other is always at risk. Why am I saying this at the beginning? Because I want you to consider what we're going to discuss today, not as a topic of healthy eating, but as a topic of life preservation. Your kidneys filter approximately 180 liters of blood per day. 180 liters regulate blood pressure, maintain electrolyte balance, activate vitamin D, produce erythropoietin, which stimulates red blood cell production, and excrete waste products that would otherwise poison your body. When kidney function fails, blood pressure rises because the kidneys can no longer regulate it. The heart has to work harder because it has to pump blood through increasingly resistant vessels. Toxic substances accumulate in the blood and damage the vascular endothelium. This thin layer of cells, which I mentioned in previous videos, which is the first line of defense against atherosclerosis, is the cardiorenal continuum, the connection between the heart and the kidneys, which cardiology is taking increasingly seriously. Research published in the European Heart Journal shows that chronic kidney disease is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, comparable to diabetes or hypertension. This is not a marginal risk, it is a central risk. And now I'll tell you something that may surprise you. Poland, along with other Central European countries, has one of the highest rates of chronic kidney disease in the region. It's estimated that it affects 4 to 7% of the adult population, and the vast majority of these people are unaware they have the problem because, in its early stages, kidney disease doesn't produce any clear symptoms. This is precisely what makes it so dangerous. This silent thief operates in the background for years before it becomes apparent, and that's why what I'll be talking about today, prevention, daily choices, and supporting your kidneys through what you put on your plate, is so important. Let's start with something most of us have in our kitchens and treat solely as a flavoring. I'm talking about garlic. Garlic is one of the most studied plants in the history of phytotherapy and natural medicine, but I'm not interested in its taste or its traditional role in Polish cuisine. I'm interested in a specific biological mechanism that has a direct impact on kidney health and the vascular system. Allicin and related organosulfur compounds found in garlic stimulate nitric oxide production in the vascular endothelium. This is the same nitric oxide I mentioned in the context of olive oil and vascular health. The effect is measurable. Blood vessels dilate. Renal perfusion pressure decreases. Blood flows through the glomeruli with less resistance. Studies published in the Journal of Nutrition and repeatedly cited by the National Institutes of Health show that regular garlic consumption is associated with lower blood pressure, lower inflammatory markers, and improved endothelial function, all factors that directly impact kidney workload. There's one practical thing I want to tell you about garlic that most people don't know. Allicin is only produced when garlic is mechanically damaged, chopped, pressed, and grated, and it takes a few minutes to form. If you immediately throw chopped garlic into a hot pan, allicin won't have time to develop. Chop the garlic and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes before cooking. This is a small gesture that requires a moment of attention and can have a real impact on the amount of bioactive substances reaching your tissues. The second spice I want to mention is much less popular in Poland than garlic, but its effects on inflammation and oxidative stress in kidney tissue are one of the most fascinating discoveries of the last 2 decades. I'm talking about turmeric. Curcumin, the main active compound in turmeric, is one of the most extensively studied natural antioxidants. It acts on several pathways simultaneously. It inhibits NF-κB, one of the main transcription factors regulating the inflammatory response. It neutralizes free radicals that damage glomerular cells and modulates the activity of detoxification enzymes in kidney tissue. Studies published in BMC Nephrology and Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity show that curcumin supplementation improves markers of kidney function, including creatinine and cystatin C levels, in patients with early and mid-stage chronic kidney disease. These are controlled clinical trials, not just observational studies. This is science that is slowly changing how we think about the role of diet in kidney protection. However, there's one thing you need to know about curcumin that prevents most people from benefiting from it, despite regular consumption. Curcumin has very low bioavailability, meaning its absorption from the gastrointestinal tract is minimal under normal conditions. But one simple trick dramatically changes this. Piperine, a compound found in black pepper, increases curcumin's bioavailability by approximately 2,000%. Yes, 2,000 isn't a headline number. This is a result documented in studies. A pinch of black pepper in any turmeric dish, and a completely different level of absorption. Traditional Indian cuisine, where turmeric and pepper have been appearing together for thousands of years, knew this instinctively before biology proved it. Since you've been with me this far, and I'm truly glad you're here, I want to tell you now about something I consider the most important point of this entire conversation. And please don't skip this part, because this is the part that was worth the wait. If you're subscribed to this channel, thank you. If you haven't, I invite you to join. Not because I care about numbers, but because what we're discussing can truly change the trajectory of your health. And I want you not to miss any of these conversations. I want to tell you now about the connection between the kidneys and the heart, because it's something that's definitely not talked about enough in doctors' offices. When blood pressure is chronically elevated, and in Poland, untreated or undertreated hypertension affects millions of people, blood flows through the delicate glomeruli of the kidneys under excessive pressure. Glomeruli are microscopic, extremely delicate filtration structures. Each kidney contains approximately 1 million of them. Continuous high pressure mechanically damages them, leading to gradual scarring. As the glomeruli scar, filtration decreases. As filtration decreases, toxic metabolic waste products accumulate in the blood. When these substances accumulate, they cause vascular inflammation, damage the lining, accelerate atherosclerosis, and the cycle continues. The heart works harder to push blood through the damaged vessels. Pressure rises, and the kidneys are put under greater strain. This spiral is what we call the cardiorenal continuum, and breaking it is one of the most important goals of modern preventive cardiology. Studies published in the New England Journal of Medicine, including the famous RENAL and IDNT studies, have unequivocally demonstrated that blood pressure control is the single most important intervention in slowing the progression of kidney disease in patients with diabetes and hypertension. Every 10 milliliters of diastolic blood pressure reduction translates into a measurable slowing of the rate of kidney function loss. This is a number based on biology, not opinion. And this is why drugs from the ACE inhibitor and sartan group are so important in patients with kidney disease. They simultaneously act on blood pressure and directly protect the glomeruli from hemodynamic damage. But let's get back to what you can do in the kitchen, because this is a dimension that truly depends on you, every day, without a doctor's appointment and without a prescription: ginger. I'm mentioning it as the third spice in this discussion, and I must say that in the context of kidney and vascular inflammation, it has an effect that surprises me with its documented effectiveness. Gingerol and shogaol, the main bioactive compounds in ginger, inhibit the cyclooxygenase enzymes COX-1 and COX-2. These are the same enzymes that inhibit the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs I mentioned earlier in the context of olive oleocanthal. But ginger does this without toxicity to the gastric mucosa and without risk to the kidneys, which are always at risk with long-term NSAID use. Research published in BMC Complementary Medicine and Therapies shows that ginger extract reduces markers of oxidative stress in kidney tissue and improves the histological appearance of the kidneys in experimental models of nephropathy. The trend is clear, but there's something else about ginger that I want to mention, because that's why I particularly like this plant in the context of cardiovascular health. It improves insulin sensitivity and stabilizes blood glucose after meals. And this is extremely important for the kidneys because hyperglycemia, or chronically elevated blood glucose levels, is one of the main mechanisms of glomerular damage. Diabetic kidney disease, or diabetic nephropathy, is currently the leading cause of end-stage renal disease requiring dialysis. Anything that helps control blood glucose, including ginger, indirectly protects the kidneys. This is another example of how simple dietary choices have multifaceted biological effects. I now want to tell you about two more things that have been documented to support kidney and vascular health and are available in every grocery store. The first is cinnamon. I know cinnamon is associated with cake and coffee, but its effects on glucose metabolism and inflammation are being seriously studied by the scientific community. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that cinnamon supplementation significantly lowered fasting and postprandial glucose levels in people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. The mechanism: cinnamon improves insulin signaling at the receptor level. Cells become more sensitive to insulin and more efficiently uptake glucose from the blood. The result is a lower glucose load for the kidneys, less glucose in the glomerular filtrate, less work for the renal tubules, and less oxidative stress for renal tissue. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon a day added to coffee, yogurt, or oatmeal is safe for the vast majority of people and can have a real impact on long-term prevention. However, I must tell you one important point about cinnamon that most popular articles overlook. There are two types of cinnamon: Ceylon cinnamon, also known as true cinnamon, and cassia cinnamon, a cheaper variety that contains significant amounts of coumarin, a hepatotoxic substance in long-term, high-dose consumption. The European Food Safety Authority has issued guidelines on this matter, and Ceylon cinnamon is strongly recommended for regular consumption. It sounds similar, tastes similar, but has a completely different safety profile with long-term use. This information is worth having. The second thing I want to mention is cumin and coriander. I can see you may be a little surprised, as these are spices associated more with Middle Eastern cuisine than Polish cuisine, but their effects on detoxification processes and the urinary tract are well documented. Research published in Interdisciplinary Toxicology has shown that coriander seed extract has a protective effect on the glomeruli of the kidneys during exposure to nephrotoxic substances. MNEC, in turn, has documented choleretic effects and stimulates the secretion of digestive enzymes, which indirectly relieves the kidneys by reducing the amount of toxic metabolites that must be filtered. These aren't clears throat magical substances, but rather natural compounds with a confirmed mechanism of action that can be incorporated into your daily diet without any side effects when used sensibly. I want to tell you now about what damages the kidneys, because prevention isn't just about what you add, it's also about what you avoid. And I have to be completely honest with you here, because I've seen the effects of these things many times over decades of practice. The first is untreated or inadequately treated hypertension. I've already mentioned the mechanism. Blood pressure destroys the glomeruli mechanically, gradually, and irreversibly. If you have hypertension and are taking medication, take it regularly. Don't take breaks. Don't stop taking it on your own. If you're unsure whether your blood pressure is well controlled, measure it at rest several times during the day and talk to your doctor. This is an absolute priority for kidney health. The second is chronic dehydration. Our kidneys need adequate fluid volume to filter effectively. When I'm dehydrated, my blood thickens, my glomerular flow decreases, my blood toxicity levels rise, and my kidneys have to work harder. Most Poles drink too little water and irregularly. A lot in the morning, nothing for a few hours, and large amounts in the evening. This is a pattern that's not good for the kidneys. Optimal hydration is consistent, regular consumption, small amounts every hour throughout the day, starting in the morning. Clearing throat. The third is regular use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, such as ibuprofen, naproxen, and diclofenac, without medical supervision or monitoring of kidney function. I remember a patient, a man who had been in surgery for several years, regularly taking ibuprofen for joint pain. No one told him to monitor his creatine. When he came to me with heart problems and we ran a full panel of tests, his GFR, or glomerular filtration rate, was dramatically lowered. He didn't know it. He wasn't experiencing kidney pain. He'd simply been quietly losing function for years. NSAIDs reduce blood flow to the kidneys by inhibiting prostaglandins, which regulate renal vascular tone. With short-term use and good hydration, the risk is small. With long-term regular use, especially in older people with already diminished renal reserve, the risk is very real. If you regularly use these medications, talk to your doctor about alternatives and about monitoring your kidney function. Fourth, a diet high in sodium and processed foods. Sodium increases blood pressure, increases the kidney's workload to excrete it, and causes water retention. Hidden salt in cold cuts, bread, canned goods, ready-made sauces, and instant soups is one of the main reasons so many people have hypertension, despite the lack of a salt shaker on the table. Labels indicate sodium content, and it's worth reading them. Now, I want to tell you about the one thing I mentioned at the beginning, the step without which all the spices I discussed today may never work as they should. It's consistent hydration, not just the amount of water you drink, but the rhythm of your intake. It's not about drinking 2 liters of water in one go in the morning and calling it a day. It's about ensuring your kidneys have a steady flow of fluids throughout the day, allowing them to filter evenly without overload. A glass of water in the morning on an empty stomach before reaching for your coffee. A small amount every hour throughout the day. Limiting large amounts of fluids right before bed so as not to overload your kidneys at night, when their flow is naturally lower. This rhythm has a biological basis in the physiology of the kidneys and their circadian rhythm, and it's something patients rarely hear about. When you combine a daily intake of garlic, turmeric with pepper, ginger, Ceylon cinnamon, and coriander seeds with a balanced hydration routine, you're giving your kidneys and blood vessels a combination of support that's natural, safe, and increasingly scientifically documented. not as a replacement for medication if necessary, but as a daily layer of protection that makes your kidneys work easier and helps them stay healthy for years to come. I want to end with something I tell my patients when we talk about kidney and heart prevention.